Hello, it is Matt, and welcome back to me talking about this. The cursed Squire Bullet Mustang Bullet. Don't know. What says it? Mustang. Anyway, you might notice that this guitar is somewhat more together than before. Last week I was just doing the neck, getting those fret ends feeling good, and I think they feel pretty good now. So I've kind of put it back together. And when I say kind of, I mean a bit. And why I'm doing that is very deliberate. And I want to maybe recommend when you guys do, guys, girls, people, do wiring stuff or change out your pickups. Not that we change out pickups. But so I put this back together, right? I put the scratch plate on, and there's like maybe 10 screws that I've got to put in, but I put in 2. And this plate is held in by 3. I just put 2 in. You're like, that's crazy. I did that because if I go further down the track and realize that I've got to change something in here, say they were brand new pickups or you're just trying something out. Don't put in 13 screws. Just put in a couple, because otherwise you've got to take all of them out again. When you change your mind or you want to tweak something, just make your life easy. So I've got 4 screws in this thing, and it probably needs another 10 more, but we're going to worry about that later. Believe me when I say that is a hot tip. I see lots of people doing their guitar stuff, and they have a big whinge about it because they've got to take their entire guitar apart again. How about you just don't put it together entirely the first time? Then you're good. Anyway, I'm going to try a new camera thing here. I've got my phone set up here. Hopefully I can just turn it on. Hopefully that's recording. I can't actually tell. On my super crappy eBay holder, I've got rid of the overhead camera. I'm sorry if you guys liked it. You people liked it. I didn't like the idea that it's going to fall on a guitar. Nice though it was, I want to avoid that from happening. So here we are with my silly phone. And hopefully this is lined up so you can see kind of what I'm doing. So today there's a couple of things I want to achieve. I've put strings on here, and I've put them on super loose. Maybe you can see. Maybe you can't. Doesn't matter. I'm doing that because I've just put the neck back on. Okay? And the neck has a bit of wiggle room. Okay? And that's deliberate. Like, maybe you can see it on this camera, hopefully. So lots of people have this real hang up about neck pockets being too loose, or it's sloppy, or that the idea is that you have this insanely tight neck pocket. I disagree with that entirely, mainly because if you talk to a cabinet maker or somebody who does a lot of fine woodwork, or somebody who's been doing it for a long time, they understand that wood changes, okay? So wood will actually expand and contract over time, and the smart, wiser people than you or I, they know that that's going to happen. So they'll make old furniture or whatever, they'll give it a little bit of wiggle room, okay? And Leo Fender and all the people that he stole ideas from had this idea of the bolt-on neck, and it's not actually completely solid. Because if it was, if this was like a super tight joint and the wood expanded, things would crack. And that's not a good look, okay? So because moisture can get in, and you get where I'm going. So there's wiggle room. And unfortunately with wiggle room comes the ability for things to get misaligned. And people are like, oh, that's just a cheap guitar. I've seen it on like 10 grand custom shop Fenders. They do it deliberately. Okay. I don't care if you think it's sloppy work. It's deliberate. Deal with it. So as such, we've got to make sure that the neck is aligned before I tighten this neck up. And I do that by putting some strings on it. And they're just like they're tight enough to be straight. So I've got them straight. Hopefully my phone is showing that. And I want to make sure that the E's are sort of centered. So the gaps on each side are equal. And I'll just move the neck a tiny bit. Actually, I'll probably tighten them a bit more. And I just want to make sure that the E's are pretty close to equal. And I want to make sure that the pole pieces are vaguely lined up. Just little tweaks. Now, some guitars or some setups, you'll notice that some people ask you how you play. Well, actually, we should all be asking ourselves how we play. I think this is lined up. Hopefully that's showing that. Who knows? I like how that is. I'm going to tighten the rest of these up. So what you can do, if you play a lot of like solos or use a lot of vibrato on the high end, you can actually have your guitar set up so the high E is actually a bit further this way towards the bass, and then you have more room to wiggle on the treble side, because not a lot of people will vibrate the low E up. If you do, then great, whatever. I don't care how you play. So just be aware that if you're looking at your guitar and you're like, oh, there's a huge difference between that. Maybe your neck's misaligned, or maybe it was done on purpose. That's your voyage of discovery. But just be aware that that's a real thing. There is a difference between having that set or built into your guitar and having your neck misaligned. You'll know if it's misaligned because it won't be even along this treble edge. It should all be roughly the same. And I am going to remake this nut. And we'll be doing that again, aligning the strings there as well. But for now, I think that looks pretty good. So I'm going to make sure this is tight enough before I put proper tension on it. And essentially, I'm not going to do too much more. I'm going to set this up to pitch. I've used sacrificial strings. I've just used Diodario 10 to 46. I'm going to put Elixir 10 to 46s on this before I give it away. I think they're a better string, but these have the same sort of tension, and we'll just go with that, okay? So, hopefully, hey, the electronics work. Hopefully I can just tune this up to pitch. My idea is to vaguely tune it up to where it should be, and that's going to be E standard. I'm going to give it a little tiny setup, and then I'm going to do nothing. I'm going to do nothing with it. I'm going to sit there. I'm going to let the guitar be a guitar for a week. That's not to say that if this was your guitar, you could actually play it. It doesn't really matter. But I want to leave tension on this guitar for a week because things will change. And it hasn't been a guitar for about a month now. It's just been a bunch of stuff. So you've got to take that into consideration. You've got to let it acclimatize to the tension and see where you end up. Because I've already done an episode on people rushing their setups. Because it is true that I could just do all the steps here. But you'll find that it'll actually be quite different when you come back a week later. Maybe not. But that's not how I do things. So this is how I do things. I've got that tuned up to pitch E, E. Sorry, my tuner's over there, so. So vaguely, that's a guitar. Sounds alright. Tone works. Alright, that's pretty cool. So, the next step in a setup is usually the string height. Because we've got our pitch. I will ignore the truss rod thing. So the truss rod's actually set pretty good. But normally it's truss rod, and then your heights, and then the intonation. So what I'm going to do today is just sort of work out the string height. I've got this ruler that I bought whenever I go from StuMac. It's a height measuring ruler. So I can put this on the frets, and I can see that string is too low. I'm just used to the measurements because I do this all the time. But you can kind of do it however you prefer. I'm just raising these up a tiny bit, and I see where the other E is. The other E's too low, so I'll raise that up a bit. So you'll also notice that these are three saddles instead of 6. So I've only got, I don't have infinite adjustment, but that's pretty good. That's what I would say is close. And I'm going to retune it. Pretty boring. And that's it. Sounds pretty cool. And that is about all I'm going to do today. I'm going to let this acclimatize. Maybe I'll play it a bit. But the next thing I'll have to do is come back and start the setup for real. Okay. So I've got some strings on it, and I use the cheaper strings, because I know that making a nut is a little bit stressful on strings. You're sort of detuning them and retuning them and detuning them, and the way I do a nut anyway, which I might show you. If I put on some $30 strings and then wrecked them in the process, I'd just waste that. But I've got these bulk strings, so I won't feel bad if something happens. And that's actually it. We're getting closer and closer to giving this thing away out of my life, which would be excellent. And I think it might be a cool guitar in the end of things. So again, if you know anyone who might like a guitar, get them to subscribe, and we'll have a chat when the time comes. I don't know how I'm going to draw this situation, but that's future me's problem. For now, we just put this to bed and let it exist as a guitar for a little while. I will get on to my other work, which I've sorely neglected. And then I'll come back next week and see where it is. If it's moved significantly, then we have to think about why. If it's kind of stayed the same, and I'll take a mental note of the measurements. If it's kind of stayed the same, then we're good. And we can be sure that then the adjustments that we are making stick. And maybe it's all right guitar after all. And then I'll make the nut and then out of here. So anyway, hope you have a good life. I'm sorry this is not much content today, but too bad. It's all you get on the internet. So that's it. Have a good week. Hope you're all fantastically well. Maybe even better than normal. If not, that's all right too. All things will pass. And life will equalize soon, I hope. Have a good one. See you next week. Maybe. That'll do.